Welcome everyone to Pathways Through the Orchard. We are now going to discuss Parshat Masei. This year, Parshat Matot and Masei come out together, but on other years they come separately. So now we're going to discuss Parshat Masei. As in most parshas, there's a number of things that happen. Of course, I write about them extensively in Orchard of Delights and Fruits of the Orchard. In the beginning is the idea of the 42 journeys through the desert. And in fact, today, we released our newest numerical gems in the Torah, discussing these 42 journeys in the desert and all the other connections with this number 42, which comes up many, many times in our tradition and in the Torah. So we're not going to discuss that tonight, but what we are going to discuss is the idea of an Are Miklat, a city of refuge. Now, this is perhaps the third time that the Torah has discussed the cities of refuge. And each time, new details are added. The first time comes in Parshat Mishpatim, and there's only one sentence. First, it says, anyone who kills on purpose, and the right legal factors are there, then a death sentence can be administered. It was actually extremely rare, but it was allowed. But then the discussion is what happens if someone killed by accident, inadvertently. And there, in just one sentence, God says, I will provide a place for this person to go. That's all it says. And then in subsequent parshas, very long explanations are given. So in our parsha, Parshat Masei, it discusses the 6 Are Miklat, the 6 cities of refuge. 3 were on the western side of the Jordan River. And in this parsha, actually in the previous parsha of Matot, we have the whole story of how 2.5 tribes, Reuven and Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh, ended up settling on the eastern bank of the Jordan. And there were also 3 cities of refuge. As I said, in Orchard of Delights and Fruits of the Orchard, we discuss this, especially in relationship to a meditation that Rav Ginsburg discusses of how these 6 cities of refuge correspond to 6 continual mitzvot, perpetual mitzvot, meaning mitzvot that apply to every person in every place and at every time. These are what we'll call thought types of mitzvot, attitudes, worldview, and that these 6 mitzvot, which give us a proper orientation, can be translated into a meditation. But the idea of a city of refuge is, in those days, there was what was called the blood avenger. In other words, if someone killed someone else, there was this idea that someone could take revenge, and that's why he had to go through a court system, because that wasn't the preferred way to deal with this kind of situation. But especially in an inadvertent murder, that's why a city of refuge was given, that a person could be safe from someone trying to take out of court revenge. So the basic idea of a city of refuge is a safe haven. Now, I just want to mention that in modern Hebrew, a bomb shelter is called a miklat, which is the exact same word as are miklat. In other words, a bomb shelter, in fact, I'm sitting in one right now, my office, where you see me recording all the time, is my bomb shelter. So miklat means a safe place at a time of war. The office of we'll call it absorption. In English, it's called the office of absorption, meaning absorbing new immigrants, integrating new immigrants, comes from the same root, misrad haklita. Klita is from the same word as miklat, and it means where an immigrant has certain privileges and certain rights that they get through the office of absorption. It makes it easier for them to be integrated into Israel society. So that's what the word means today. And it was the same then, that a person who inadvertently killed, but there was some culpability. It didn't happen on purpose, but still it was a little bit of carelessness. It didn't have to end up with someone dying, but it did. And so that's why they had to go to a Ari Miklat. So I want to just talk about one particular aspect of the Ari Miklat that, as we mentioned, there were 3 on the western side of the Jordan and 3 on the eastern side of the Jordan. And they were spaced pretty evenly between north, the middle of the country, and south. And it says in the Gemara that all over the country there were signs. This is the first street signs, really, saying miklat, miklat, with an arrow pointing towards the direction of the Ari Miklat. It's very interesting. These were like street signs. We don't find that there were any other street signs, but it said miklat, miklat. So the question is, in the portion of Matot, we had this idea of a double language. Elef lamate, 1,000 per tribe, 1,000 per tribe. Here, why does it have to write the word miklat twice? Wouldn't it have been just as simple just to write miklat big one time with an arrow? Why twice? So Rav Ginsburg explains the gematria of miklat is 179. If you multiply that, miklat is 358 equals Mashiach. So everyone would ask, what's the connection? What's the connection of an Ari Miklat for someone who murdered inadvertently and Mashiach? So one way we can answer this is, as we say all the time, everything in the Torah is archetypal and has everlasting meaning. We don't have Ari Miklat anymore. We haven't for thousands of years. So what do we learn from it today? We learn the overall meaning of a safe haven. And we're going to apply that in a number of different ways. I already mentioned that Rav Ginsburg teaches that the 6 Ari Miklat correspond to the 6 ongoing mitzvot tamidiyot, perpetual mitzvah. Since I mentioned it, I'll go through them very quickly. It's the belief in God and divine providence. That's the first of the 10 commandments. I am the Lord your God who has taken you out of the land of Egypt. The second one is the second of the 10 commandments. Do not have any other gods other than me. In other words, you can believe in God, but still put your trust in all kinds of other forces. The third one is Shema Yisrael, the understanding of the unity of God, and in essence, the unity of all reality. The fourth is the love of God. That's in the first passage of the Shema. You shall love God, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. The fifth is to have awe, respect, and fear of God. That comes in the book of Devarim. What does God ask of you or request from you other than to have awe and fear of him? Fear doesn't mean afraid, it means respect. And the last one is in the third passage of the Shema, Lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei nechem. Do not go after the passions of your heart and your eyes. This is called the idea of guarding yourself from negativity. These are the 6 mitzvot. And when you arrange them in the form of a cube is a 6-sided figure, then you're in the Are Miklat, you're in the safe haven of a meditative force that Rav Ginsburg calls living in divine space. But now I want to continue with this idea of what's the connection that miklat equals Mashiach. One way we can understand is that one of the greatest contributions that the Jewish people made to the world, it had a tremendous effect on Christianity and Islam and all of Western society, is the belief that ultimately there will be peace in the world. There will be peace and harmony between nations. Nation will not lift up sword against nation, and nation will not learn war anymore. That's from Isaiah. But all of the great prophets talked about when Mashiach comes, that the wars, the constant warring of human beings since Cain kills Abel will become a thing of the past, and peace and harmony will reign among all nations. This has been the great hope, the great vision of the Jewish people. And no matter how bad it has gotten, this is our safe haven, our belief, our faith, our complete faith. It's one of the 13 principles of faith of the Rambam, of Maimonides. Believe with emuna shalema, the biat Mashiach, and we believe in a complete faith that Mashiach will come. We could say that this is our city of refuge. This belief that ultimately it will be good. Ultimately, this is the plan. And this gives us strength to go through so much that the Jewish people have gone through. But let's look at other ideas that are also a safe haven, a city of refuge. We talked about meditation, this whole idea of living in divine space, and I invite everyone to look in Orchard of Delights. It's also in Seasons of the Soul with Sukkot, because the idea of shaking the 4 species to the 6 directions correspond directly to the idea of 6 cities of refuge and the 6 continual mitzvot and to the svirot, and it's very, very potent kind of meditation. But along with meditation is the idea of prayer. That prayer on a daily level is that safe haven where I can withdraw from the worries of the world, the distractions of the world, the stimulus of the world, and I can directly connect with God. And through that, connect to my own soul, my whole purpose in this world. Prayer becomes like a city of refuge, just like meditation. One of the greatest verses in the Torah for prayer and meditation is the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. This is the foundational verse of faith of Judaism. And we'll notice, though, there are exactly 6 words to the Shema. And we know that throughout Jewish history, that the Shema is like the bedrock of our belief in God and our belief in our traditions. And we know that if a person is conscious and they're about to die, they say the Shema. And that's why, quite literally, millions of people during the Holocaust went to their deaths with Shema on their lips. But if you can imagine, at the time of the worst crisis, walking into the gas chambers, at the beginning of the war, people didn't understand where they were being taken and what was done. By the end of the war, everyone knew what was going on. And so the ability at the very moment of death to be able to say the Shema becomes like a city of refuge, a safe haven that where the soul can go, no matter what's happening to the body, the soul has its place, its safe haven. There's an amazing teaching in the Tikkunei Zohar. This is a familiar story of David and Goliath. When Goliath challenges the Jewish people and proposes, instead of like 2 armies fighting, you pick a person to fight me. Whoever wins, the other one will be servants or slaves to the other nation. And so David volunteers. No one thinks he's really capable, but he steps up there, and Goliath comes with his full armor, and David has only his slingshot. And it says in the text that he picked up 5 stones, and then it says, and he shot one of the stones, and he was able to get right between the armor that Goliath was wearing and to kill him. So the Tikkunei Zohar explains, what are these 5 stones and what is this 1 stone? So they explain that the 5 stones were Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem, and then the 1 stone that he took was Echad. And with the power of the Shema, he was able to defeat Goliath. Now this is connected because we're told that Goliath for 40 days would come out in the morning and the evening at the time where he knew that Israel would be saying the Shema, and he would curse them and taunt them in order that they wouldn't have intent to say the Shema. And here we see David, he was calm, he was confident, because he had the Shema with him. Here I want to introduce two numerical gems. At some point, they might become the subject of our series, Numerical Gems in the Torah. But here, because it's connected, a city of refuge is a place. And that's why in the first mention of it in Parshat Mishpatim, God says, I will give you a place where you can run to, where you can go hide. So many of you might know this already, but if you take the name of God, the four-letter name of God, a Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey, and you multiply them by themselves, Yud equals 10, so 10 times 10 equals 100. Hey is 5. Hey times Hey equals 5. 5 times 5 equals 25. Vav equals 6. 6 times 6 is 36. And another Hey. 5 times 5 equals 25. So if you add 100 and 25 and 36 and 25 equals 186 equals makom, place. So here we have this idea of the world. Actually, Rashi gives this over, that when God is about to reveal the 13 midot of Rachamim, the 13 aspects of compassion to Moshe after the golden calf, he says, there is a place with me, and I will hide you in the rock, and I will put my hand before you when I pass by and enunciate the 13 midot of Rachamim. Very symbolic language, of course, but on the words, there is a place with me. So Rashi says, Hu hamakom shel olam, v'haolam einu makomo. God is the place of the world, but the world is not his place. A very paradoxical statement, meaning space and time are creations of God. God creates space, God creates time. But God is above space and above time. So a city of refuge is this idea of, it's a mental, in our day, it's a mental place. It's an attitude. It's an inner soul view of itself in the world. It's a place to connect to God. That's what we learned, that the four letters of God's name, when multiplied, equals space, makom. So through meditation, through prayer, we can be in what's called a place of living in divine space. That becomes our city of refuge, knowing that God is with us and that God is protecting us. God is always there for us. We can always turn to God. Sometimes God feels very far away. Sometimes we feel very far away from God. But ultimately, God is the ultimate city of refuge that we can always find a place with God. So we'll end with a blessing. We'll end with a blessing. First of all, right now in Israel, we need our miklatim. We need our bomb shelters. But we hope that a time will come where the physical need for an Ari Miklat will no longer have any relevance. And it will only be this idea of living in divine space.